Hello, hello, Chris here with another episode of the Make It podcast. And as usual, I'm doing pregnant pauses for the benefit of my good friend and co-founder, Nicholas Buggs. Nick, can you say hello?
Hello. And what's funny about that is that was it yesterday? I was looking at a playing card of, one of our Star Trek heroes and how he would talk like this. And it reminded me of one Chris Barkley.
Yes. I stole it from him because remember what Joey Baggs told us a long time ago? He said, Star Trek is for adults.
Star Wars is for children.
Mm-hmm. That's what he said. And yeah. I know what he meant. I don't agree with him completely.
Right.
But I know what he meant. And shout out to Joey.
Wait.
Seen him in a long time.
If that's true, then I have to say that I was mimicking, Captain Kirk. Mm-hmm. Because if it's
he was a lover,
adults,
he was a player,
and I'm saying, but if this is for adults, there might be some children who are listening who are like, I have no clue who he's talking about. So Captain Kirk,
William Shatner was an intergalactic lover, and
that's right.
He bedded many women with 3 breasts or 3 ears. He didn't care.
Right.
He wasn't a picky lover. Yeah, he was good to go. We realize we have no idea. We have no idea what his home life was like back on Earth. We don't know. Does he have 3 families down there? We don't know. We just know he was the right guy for the mission. Now, Speaking of the right men for the mission, we have 2 with us today. All right. So we just can't ignore and leave the elephant in the room. We have the incredible Dexter Buell here with us, along with cinematographer. That's your primary title, Derek Mendler. Gentlemen, say hello and welcome to the Make It podcast.
How you doing, Chris? It's great to be here. And Nick, nice to see you. Appreciate the invitation.
Good to be here, guys. Thanks for having us.
It's our distinct pleasure. And just to get our esteemed and distinct pleasure, just to catch the audience up on each of you, give them some context on why we would want to have you on the podcast and the great work you're doing out there in the indie film space. Starting with you, I guess we'll start with you, Derek, since I already did say your title. Can you just tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you've worked on?
Sure. I am a cinematographer based in New York City, and I work on all kinds of different projects like documentaries, feature films, music videos, a little bit of everything, including a documentary called The One and Only Dick Gregory, which I believe you guys interviewed Christian Gregory for a while back.
You got it. That's awesome.
100%. Dexter, drop the info on us.
Yeah. Dexter Buell here again. I'm a writer, director, actor, former high school teacher, and originally schooled in the visual arts. So I have come to the indie filmmaking space after a long and winding road. And I have, along with Derek's help, just finished a short film called The South Shore, which I wrote during the pandemic. I wrote it in a feature-length form, and with my former colleague, Kevin Lopez, who couldn't get here tonight.
Now he's a former colleague.
Right. He's like, I'm done with that guy, man. He's supposed to be here with me right now, and forget him.
He and I taught together for a number of years in the New York City schools and at the Frank Sinatra School of the Arts. Incidentally, I was there yesterday revisiting some of my old friends there and seeing some of the students. Where was I? Writer, director. I left teaching about 8 years ago to pursue acting, writing, and directing. And so here's the project, and here's my face smiling about it.
What is South Shore about? You wrote it during the pandemic. Is it about the pandemic?
No, not really. It takes its sort of the kernel of its main action from a story by Joseph Conrad called The Secret Sharer. And it's an incident in which a sea captain comes across his double. He pulls him out of the ocean in the middle of the night and then kind of lies about it and doesn't tell anybody. Yeah. And I've had a lifelong love of the sea and the water. And so I just started writing a story around that kernel of an interaction, of an experience. And Kevin and I really developed the story together after that point by taking a character who finds his double in this sort of mysterious way. Only we changed the other double character to a young man, a young undocumented immigrant man who was really an echo of the students that Kevin and I were working with when we were teaching. So the story was both very personal, autobiographical, but very much connected to the people that I got to know when I was teaching in the city schools. So many curious and able and intelligent kids that I got to work with that were, often struggling and often sort of at sea, literally, or quite, I guess I should say figuratively at sea. Yeah. So that's sort of where we came to the story. And so it's about this guy who's living on his boat. He's wrecked by a loss, and he comes across the young man who he thinks may have been involved in this loss, and pulls him out of the ocean in the middle of the night, and is then sort of faced with trying to figure out how he fits into his experience.
Literally, a literal sort of fish out of water story.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. For both characters, that'll be great. I can't wait to see that. You mentioned teaching a few times, and it is remarkable how many high level, brilliant creatives come out of essentially two fields before they get into film: teaching, sometimes music. I think Lana Del Rey was a teacher even before she was a singer. So teaching and copywriting, those two fields create amazing film people for whatever reason. There's so many screenwriters that were copywriters first for some ad agency and then decided to get out of that world and hop into the film world. And so many teachers who have been sort of teaching the art of the structure of art and sort of the principles of finding yourself as an artist, and then say, okay, I'm hopping out of that. I'm going to do it myself. So I don't know. Is there any there to that? Do you guys find that, or is that me just
we're here to tell you that the old saw goes, those who can't do teach, is not true.
Right.
Kevin and I continue to make films. Kevin, while he's starting a new high school, incidentally called Motion Picture Tech, he's the lead principal project manager on that project. He's also produced this film. He's producing other projects with Derek right now. Derek's shot some other work with him. And one of the things that he brought to our collaboration was this enormous collaborative spirit and the bringing of the team that he had sort of built along the way, because he's been in the system for a long time and known a lot of really talented people. And, I think there is always a tension between wanting to make the stuff yourself and wanting to share the knowledge about how to make it with other people. And I think part of being a creative is having a sense of obligation or sense of, to pass on that knowledge and to share that knowledge, but it does feed you and returns something to the well, as so it's just a matter of how many hours are in the day, if you can.
I think we ride that tension a little bit. And for us, it's funny. I'll give you a little inside baseball on being a podcaster, or I should say just having a podcast like this, which is, if we don't make stuff, people don't listen to us. So it's really this interesting conundrum. Like, we could teach some things, but our teaching becomes stale and it becomes less relevant the less and less stuff we make. So it's really important that we make stuff. And so, any chance I get, I'm always actively trying to pursue a project. because I can take those experiences and bring it right back to this podcast, and it be a modern take on what it's like today to make a thing. Right. But in our minds, we're probably thinking, well, we've done 3 feature films. We've done a handful of short films. We've done hundreds of consults. We've been around film now for over a decade. We just can teach that. And why would anyone question, anything? But the whole thing too is there's, and I heard Scott Glenn talk about this, the actor Scott Glenn talk about this recently, about there's this sort of LA game that gets played where it's about who have you worked with, what are your awards, what are your credentials, and the reason that game gets played is because that gets you in the door. Even producers will say, "Oh, you got this role, you did this movie, you never will have to audition again." I mean, just like as an actor, you don't have to audition again because you got a big role in a movie that made it. And for him, that movie was Urban Cowboy. And that's sort of a movie that I think the modern audience may not know. But if you love movies, you probably know Apocalypse Now, and you probably know Urban Cowboy in Nashville. These are the movies he was in that he was sort of speaking about. But it's funny, you get caught up in those moments. I had a moment recently. I'll share a quick story. Let me ask you this, Derek. Well, this is for everybody. Have you ever been in a social situation, that kind of forced you to be fake? like outside of your authentic self?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that kind of thing happens a lot in the industry, unfortunately. You kind of feel like you have to, act a certain way or have certain interests even, or something like that, just to connect with certain other people in the industry sometimes. And part of it's, a little bit of that game that you mentioned. But yeah, I think, there's definitely when someone is being authentic, and that can really take you far. And, people really connect with authentic people.
Yeah. You'll want to be their best friend if you find somebody like that in the industry. Nick, what about you? I mean, have you ever, you're a guy who,
so me, man,
sort of hangs on, but like to himself, but there are these social situations that kind of make you. So I'll tell you what happened to me. I'm watching a movie, and the movie's called Dog Man. Have you guys heard of this movie? Dog Man?
Heard of it, haven't seen it. Yeah.
Okay, so Dog Man, it was directed by Luc Besson, who did The Professional, and I love The Professional. It's one of my favorite movies.
One of my favorite movies all time.
So
Leon.
Yeah. So of course I'm like, okay, I'll go watch this Luc Besson movie. I go to the movie theater. It's just sort of a weird time. There was something else going on in this venue, and there were only 4 people in there. So now I've just set you up with the awkward social situation. It's me, a guy in the same row with me, 2 chairs down, and then a couple that I'm not even sure if they're watching the movie behind me. Right? They're engaged with each other. So no personal hate to Luke. I thought the movie was bad, and at times preposterous. Like it just like, I'm like, what? Why did I? And this is straight from the Bible of Nick here. Why did I invest my time in this? This movie did not, Nick, this is something Nick says, the movie didn't earn my time.
That's right.
Right. And I'm stuck in this, but I'm not the kind of guy who walks out. I've only walked out of one movie in my life, and that was Freddie Got Fingered, the Tom Green movie. So that movie got so ridiculous. I actually just couldn't even believe it. I grew up modestly. So like, I don't waste stuff, even a movie ticket expense. Like I will sit through a trash movie all the way to the end because I spent money on it. But I walked out of that one. This one I didn't walk out of. I watched the whole thing. And then when I get up, me and this guy have to leave the theater together. We're in the same row. So we walk together out and towards the exit. And at the exit, he turns to me and says, "Wasn't that great?"
Hey.
And I was like,
"Nah, man.
Okay, okay.
Honesty.
Do I say this movie was terrible?
Yes.
Or
that's exactly what you say, bro. Like
for 10 more minutes debating it with this stranger.
No, you don't have to
give a shit about
it. You don't have to debate it. Be like, because that's what I'm saying. Me, I'm true. I'm just gonna say what it is and be like, great. Nah, bro, I did not like that movie. And I might open it up and say,
No.
you know what? I didn't like it. Tell me what I missed.
Okay,
right?
so
Open the door.
I thought you were
I
going to
like
say
that,
that.
but now you're there for 20 minutes.
Yeah,
Well,
it just depends on what you have time for.
Exactly. It depends what I have time for. But if I have time for it, I could say, well, tell me what I missed. What did you like about it? Or I just say, no, it wasn't. And then I'm out, right? I exit the stage left, he goes stage right.
Was like a player, like superpower broker. You just happen to be watching a movie with somebody who had some major status at that point.
Right.
Right. Because it was a private screening. You're spot on, Dexter. Dexter, you are spot on. Because it was a private screening, I didn't know who I was talking to. And it's one of the things that I've learned in business, which is you never open your mouth. This is a line from Glengarry Glen Ross, the greatest sales movie of all time. You never open your mouth until you know the score. And because I had no idea who this man was, I didn't know if he was associated with the film. Why was he at this screening? I just
Discretion
said,
is the better part of valor, they always say.
Yeah, but the other part of that equation is that,
but he made me fake.
As a player in the game, you might have had to say, no, it wasn't, because he might have been drinking the Kool-Aid, right, and had too much of it, and now there you go, and potentially has now made a failed investment because there's too much Kool-Aid. He didn't have anybody around there telling him the truth.
Well, homie, the movie is made, so the investment's
I understand that. But next one, you got to think about it, right? It's like, nah, man, the truth of the matter is, right, and then what do they say about the truth? It shall set you free. So, you know.
Do you know what we've just done? What we've just done is everyone listening will not have to go watch Dogman to confirm. So we've helped this movie out.
One thing that I do sometimes in those situations, if I don't want to extend like the conversation too long, is I'll pick something that I did actually like, and I'll say it's like the cinematography really worked for me, or like the editing was amazing, or just like some element you can kind of pick out and say this was great. So you're not lying and you're not being fake, but
this is true.
You're kind of not also agreeing unnecessarily that something was amazing when it wasn't.
Yeah, see, Derek, I thought you were going in a totally different direction. I thought you were going to say that you carry like baby powder and you put it in your hand, you just smack the person, and it just ends the conversation right there, right?
You do got to have that backup. You got to always have the baby powder in your pocket, but you can usually get away with the just picking out the one element that was okay.
The plan
I
B.
like your approach better, man. I appreciate that.
I could imagine that. Me too. I could imagine that Dexter had to have in his life seen the work of a student and it just not be there. But then he has to be outside of his authentic feelings, lest he shut this artist down too early.
No, but I don't think he has to be inauthentic.
I think
he has to be a teacher.
I made a terrible film in college when I was a student, and I didn't make another film for like 25 years because the feedback was not what it should be. So as a teacher, when I was working with kids, I tried to remember, even though things sometimes popped out of my mouth that I, landed on kids the wrong way, but tried to remember that it really, in many ways for student work, it's not really about the outcome. It really is just about the experience of doing it. And yesterday when I was on set with these 15-year-olds, and they were slating their shots and they were framing them up and they were talking about the lighting and all this sort of stuff. I was just happy to be there seeing them do that, because regardless of what they come up with, I hope they come up with something usable so they can edit, but the experience of it is what they're going to take away and what they're going to remember. I want to add something about this kind of straddling these two worlds, though. I will say that oftentimes if you come at something from an unusual angle, if you didn't come from film school, or if you didn't come from the normal route, a lot of times people are confused by you. People in the industry confused by you. So if and Kevin and I, are the educators who make films, and in the film world we're educators, and in the education world we're like this weird animal that always wants to be leaving early to go do this other stuff. And people do want to find easy lanes.
That's right.
So that they can, so that it's not complicated. People like simplicity. So it's just it adds a certain level of resistance, and if you didn't like or get used to resistance as an artist or a filmmaker, you wouldn't be in the business.
Yeah, Chris and I have gone through that. I think especially the beginning of our careers in film, where we were trying to establish ourselves as what we wanted to be for people, right? We even talked about, hey, we're consulting you, whether it's in marketing or distribution. But the idea of a consultant seemed so like alien to filmmakers. Right. It was like, well, it was icky. Like, what is this thing? There's no title in that. Like, if you go into IMDb, like, when do you see the consultant part? Right. Especially in indie film, they didn't understand that. Yeah. So then it's like, well, we're executive producers and, we're helping to produce the films, or we're, providing financing or connecting them with financiers. But at the same time, we're also promoting the marketing aspect of it. And they're like, well, that's not what executive producers do. Like, you don't try to help us market our film. And was like, you have to understand that as an executive producer, I also want a return on my investment. So if I have an opportunity to help you with the marketing, then that's what I'm going to, but it was confusing. So now you're an executive producer. Are you P&A? Are you So it was this thing where we started to shift and morph and understand that being outside of the pigeonhole was actually hurting us. We needed to start to speak the language more. So it's like, okay, let's move into more of the producer role, because even that title in itself, as you know, there are producers who do a multitude of things, right? It's not one thing. It might be sometimes one person, right? But it's not always one thing. So it's like, we have to speak the language so that we can at least be accepted. And then once we're in, because we speak the language, then we can help do the various things that we want to help do. So we're 100% on board with what you're saying.
Let me just look in the indie film space, and cowardice is the wrong word. It's not a cowardice that we had. It's just, we just decided to stop fighting. We were fighting against, and I blame film school, honestly. I mean, not all film schools are created equally, but what they came out of school learning to ask for, learning how the process works, and not being willing to deviate from that due to sort of the fear of being taken advantage of and having so little resources. Well, the irony behind all that stuff is that process that gets taught to you leads you down the path of being taken advantage of. It leads you right to the shark's mouth. And we just got tired of fighting that battle. I don't think that anything we did was wrong. Look, I've said it many times on this podcast. The best investor for a lot of filmmakers in the indie space is the fiscal sponsorship type of EP, or the EP that wants a tax shelter, or the EP that is a high net worth individual and wants to diversify, and that will not put his finger or thumb or her finger or thumb in your creative. We never aspired to be that. And so it got confusing. Like, okay, you guys aren't Ivory Tower. You're not doing it for some, greedy millionaire play that we thought you were doing it for. Like, okay, but I'm not ready to concede any of my creative to you guys. And I haven't vetted you guys as worthy of, giving some of that creative over to.
Well,
like, what have you guys jump in on that? So it goes right back to, what have you guys done? Why am I listening to you?
Let me add
and
to
so
that,
we had
though.
to fight
Isn't
that battle early.
Yeah, because that's the thing, is that, like you said, we had to fight the battle, but that's the interesting thing. And I'm sure both of you understand this. It's like the creative, the filmmakers, when untested, want you to give them a chance. Right. Yeah. But then we, on the other end, are trying to help them. And they're like, well, what have you done? Right. It's like, wait. We're all in this position where we're trying to untested. Exactly. Like, what exactly? It's like this full fight. Like, what is happening? So it's really interesting that kind of dynamic with filmmakers. But I think we found, several niches in this. And again, as producers, and just having the podcast that enables us to have conversations like these, to just get these things out in the open, right? We know that people feel the same way. They have the same thoughts. And sometimes when you know that others are going through some of the same challenges, it makes you feel better about what you're going through. You're not alone, right? That's part of why we do this.
That's also one of the really cool things about like the whole indie world as well, is that, there's such a beautiful flexibility to it all, that you can really, invent your own role in a way sometimes, and just kind of turn, solve whatever problems need solving in, with whatever title that ends up being, which you can't really do once you start getting to like the large and studio type projects, so you can really create your own path in a really interesting way.
Well, I'd love for you to expound on that, by the way.
I was gonna ask him to expound on it, but in a make it podcast kind of way, if I might. Okay. Yeah. So we want you to expound on it, but this way. So as you know, this is the Make It podcast.
Right.
Okay. And it was founded based on an idea we had, or a question that we used to ask people. We said, what does it mean to you to make it in this industry? So to expound upon that, that's what I would like to know from both of you. Right. And we can start with Derek, since you were on a roll. What does it mean to you to make it?
Well, I don't know if I had necessarily have like a single definition for that. I definitely feel that, there's kind of a point where you're able to fully support yourself by doing the work in this field. And that's certainly one interpretation of making it. If you focus too much on like achieving, I haven't made it until, I'm shooting a Christopher Nolan movie or something of that nature, then, you might just be chasing and never feeling like you're achieving anything. Because, some things like that might not happen in the way that you imagine them.
Right.
So my current kind of understanding for myself is that, I'm able to fully support myself being a freelance cinematographer, working across a variety of projects. I have people that continually want to work with me and bring me on to projects. And I think that's certainly in an indie interpretation, like that's certainly made it,
I agree, man. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Dexter?
Yeah, well, I love that, Derek. I feel a little bit like I might have been around the block a couple of times before you guys, left the block, whatever, came out of your apartment buildings.
Yeah.
And so I've been doing lots of different things for a lot of different years. And so I tend to interpret the make it as while I was making this film, I felt like I had made it. I was living in a moment of like creative immediacy with Derek and with Kevin and with the script that I had written and with the location we were in. We shot on the water. I was totally connected to the water. Like I was just so completely in it that I felt like, I could take that to the bank in a way that you can't take some other things. My acting coach, since I was directing, and I had an old friend and mentor on set who was on my monitor for me, and he's an old hand. He's been around New York for a long time, stage and film both. And he told me at the end of that 3-day shoot, he said, "That's the best experience I've had on set in 40 years I've been making movies." So, I took that home, and I will hold on to that. That has a lot of value to me. So.
And Chris, can you imagine? We could not have set this up better, considering the fact that make it, of course, is a double entendre. And we have both of our guests today have both said something from both sides of that entendre. It is amazing. Right. It is amazing because that's it. It's the art itself. It's being in the moment. It's the making of things. And then also describing that like this is a career. This is an industry that you want to make it in. And I think you both articulated it perfectly. That's awesome.
I agree. And one of the magic things about the podcast itself is that it made it into a triple entendre.
So there you go. Yeah.
It was all planned, obviously.
But I didn't want to just because Derek, you worked on episode of Billions. You've done the one and only Dick Gregory. You've shot for some studio stuff and you've done some indie stuff. I wanted to kind of hear, you had just sort of hinted at the difference between the two types of sets and the two types of business transactions, if you will. Mm-hmm. Can you speak to some of the differences in your experience between, let's say, working on an indie short film or an indie feature versus shooting a network-based TV show or a studio-based TV show or movie?
Yeah, so I haven't been the cinematographer on like a studio film, but I've definitely worked on projects that are a lot more, studio based and then obviously a lot more indie based. So, a lot of the differences are the amount of people that are involved and kind of like the politics of set and who has to be involved and what decisions. And even if you're allowed to kind of make just like a call on the day, if you see something like that's really interesting or that we think might be good for this film, sometimes we just like, let's go for it. Let's make the call. Let's do that. And, you don't always have that flexibility on a lot of larger projects because, there's a lot more decision makers involved and things like that. There's a lot more rigidity to everything. Like, for example, if you're on a union film set, right, you don't touch anything that belongs to another department. I was in the electrics department on Billions for like an episode or so, just kind of filling in. And, if you are in the grip department, you touch the stands and stuff. But if you're electrics, you only touch the lighting and not the stand.
Oh, wow.
So, there's a little bit of a divide like that. And if you come from the indie world, I think sometimes you can run into that wall a little bit and think that, it's restricting you and things like that. But when it's such a large machine, everyone really needs to understand their role and their purpose on a project like that. So, if you have everyone indie style grabbing stuff and moving stuff and like, hey, I'm just going to move this over here, things get lost, things get knocked over.
Yep.
So there's a reason that things are the way they are, on the bigger projects. But also when you're on a very small set, there's such like a creative synergy that can form if you have the right people. And everyone's wearing multiple hats, everyone's solving problems. The producers like running to grab the bagels in the morning, the DP is picking up light stands and moving stuff around. They're very different, but they're different for a reason.
Yeah, I think want to ask a question more fun for that reason. By the way, yeah, go ahead, Nick.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. But the question I was gonna ask was, who teaches you the difference? Right. So I think that like
that's a good question.
When you walk on set, like, did you wait to get your hand slapped when you touched that stand and someone was like, look, bro, like you need to understand, don't touch that part. Like, how did you figure that out?
Well, there's actually an interesting situation that happened. I think at one point the camera batteries were not fully charged or something. I'm not sure I fully remember the circumstances, but the camera batteries were not fully charged. And I mentioned to one of the camera assistants that the batteries will charge faster from like 0 to like 70% or whatever, rather than charging them from 70 to like 100%, like all the way. So if you just put them on, don't let them fully charge, and then put the next ones on, you get a little bit quicker, charge more efficiency. And the person who had brought me on was like, don't help them. And he was like, because if anything goes wrong, if there's a delay, if the cameras, if they run out of battery power, that becomes your fault.
Yep. Just because you help them, it becomes your fault.
Yeah. Because, like I'm over here saying, oh, you guys should do this,
It's almost akin to like when you tell somebody what stock is you're really interested in.
Yeah, like
and they go invest that stock and they lose their house and home. And you're like, you told me to invest in that stock.
Right.
Like, do what you want to do. I just was giving you what I thought.
Exactly. So it's a little bit of a different atmosphere, but
But you learn it on set though, right? You learn it as you go. There's no training day, right? Where they sit down and like, look, this is this and that is that. And I'm just curious if that environment hurts the indie filmmaker. Like, how do you ever get there, right? How do you get to the point where you just understand it? Is it you take a, I don't know, I don't want to call it lesser, but let's say you take a lesser role where you're more observing, like before you get an opportunity. Yeah, exactly. Before you actually get an opportunity to touch anything.
Well, that's such a valuable skill in general to have, to be able to observe what's happening and stuff. Like that can be so informative and really help you navigate situations like that if you're always observing, and also just having an open mind that things aren't always going to be the same.
Right.
Like, you know, I understand that I can operate differently when I'm working on an indie project versus when I'm working on a much larger studio-based project.
Yep.
So if you're kind of armed with that knowledge and that flexibility kind of built into how you plan to proceed, then kind of going through the hierarchy is something that helps with that. You know, you start off on like a lower position, and people that you're surrounded with will kind of help guide you. But it's, you know, it's definitely not a place where people get babied into roles.
Exactly. Yep.
So you kind of do have to have a thick skin and be a quick learner, and just be ready to go with the flow.
Yeah, be flexible and have thick skin. I try so hard to get as many PAs on my sets as possible, just so they can observe. And you know, even if I get pushback from the other producers, like, God, I really want this person. I think they'd be awesome. They just need to be able to be on set and show that work ethic. You know, Nick, how it shows up on set, by the way, on an indie set, is you'll get somebody who isn't doing their job quick enough, usually, or proficient enough and quick enough. And what will happen is somebody like me or you will replace that person with someone else. So on any set, someone who's wearing another hat will get another hat to wear, and they'll start doing that job, and they'll just start doing it. Right? There is no announcement. There's no you're off this. You're like, on any set, it's like, we don't have the time. Like, just you go do it, and I'll coach up this person and I'll tell them to observe or whatever, but you just start doing that job. Because, you know, like a lot of times a professor like you, Dexter, will reach out to me and say, hey, I've got these 3 students. They're really bright. They're graduating from my film school. Do you have any work for them? And then you put them on set and you find out, okay, one of these guys didn't pay attention in class and we can't use you. But I'm not going to burn my bridge with Dexter. So I'm not going to fire him. I'm going to keep him on set. I'm going to let somebody else that knows how to do it. Hopefully they observe, and then I get to keep my friendship with Dexter.
Yeah,
right.
I wanted to shout out Derek for the kind of attention to the detail and to the preliminary work we did, because we were shooting at night on the water, and that, you know, requires just a lot of detailed planning. And we sat down a few times. Well, we did an initial scout, walked through the location, the different boats we were on, and then we sat down with some mapping software, and you know, we wrapped 10 minutes late the night we were on the boat, and Derek was just spot on the whole time. It was amazing.
Thank you, Dexter.
Well, let me just ask about the boat. That's an interesting thing. Like, if you're scouting a boat, right? There's the boat that fits the story, that's based on the words that you wrote, Dexter. But there's also this idea of like, the boat actually has to work for filming too. So that's a tough scout, in my opinion. I mean, like,
no, they found a boat that was cut in half down the center.
We didn't have a
you have to
budget
be able
for
to
the
set up
pool.
the gear. You have to have the crew there. Like, you have to be able to all the stuff.
Well, one of the really interesting things in terms of the scout is I've kind of started a habit of using a 360-degree camera for my scouting. So on the scout, I'll have it's like an Insta360.
Yeah, I have it. I'm using Insta360 right now.
They're
using
awesome. It right now.
Yeah. So I take that on scouts with me, and I kind of record everything as we're walking through, and then I upload that to YouTube on like a private link, and I send it out to the whole crew. kind of like bookmarked with like each location.
Yeah.
And that really helps like with such a small boat, you know, like we couldn't get the whole team out there. So I can send out this video to everyone and be like, this is our scout. And it's almost as if they were there with us, because they can literally on YouTube just pan around, tilt up and down, like look at almost like anything that we need. So I shared that with my gaffer, and he's able to kind of look at the, you know, at the skylights in the boat, and we can start talking about where we're going to put lights through. We were looking for like where we had power access in the 360 video. The production designer, Michael, was using it for, you know, deciding, you know, what props we were going to use and where things were going to go. And I was able to kind of tell him what was going to end up being in the frame. So that's a tool in terms of scouting that I felt has really.
I love that.
That's awesome.
I love that because, and just for those watching and listening, typically on an indie sort of production, you do the scout. First of all, you might not have a location scout, so you're doing the scout. The producers, the director, obviously, but the, you know, the whole team. That's basically, let's say the below the line team will go out and scout the location, and they'll just pull out their iPhones or cameras and take pictures. So it's just a bunch of pictures, and you upload it maybe to a Google Doc or something like that, or you share it on a text thread, or you do whatever you're doing with those images. And so you might be thinking to yourself, why wouldn't everybody just use video? Well, I mean, a lot of people might, but it just actually, for whatever reason, and it might go back to what I said before, like you get taught away and then you become rigid around that way. And it's like, for whatever reason, it's just, let me get these still pictures. Let me put it into the sort of the company book, if you will, like the lookbook of the shoot. And there are some instances where a still photo is more useful, right? Like when you have to put the production book together. And but now with the technology you have, those books probably could hold a video embed, and then you can just click play right there on the digital document. So I mean, I think video is a great idea for that 360.
I have a question on that one too,
in particular. Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
Yeah. So my question is, if I'm thinking about specifically the boat again, and any kind of small, well, I don't even say any small space, but any space where you're using the camera and you're taking this video, are you able to get depth and dimension and kind of give that information and those cues to folks as well, to say that, hey, I'm walking through this, but from here to there is about 3 feet. That's 3 yards. Like, is there a way that you're able to share that information with them as well?
Yeah. So there's kind of two ways we did that. You can either kind of just say it as you're walking through, just kind of estimate, because, you know, there's also sound. But for anything that was a little bit more critical, I also had like a little pocket size laser distance measure, and I would just kind of do like a quick little measure and then bring it up here, and you can kind of see what the measurement is in the video. So it's again, as if you're standing like on top of me as we're going through the scout, and you can kind of see that information.
That's perfect. Yeah.
But one of the things
I knew you had something, man. I knew you had something. Ask.
One of the things that Dexter did was that he actually drew overhead diagrams of like the exact boat layout. So we were able to, after the scout, take that, and I brought a picture of that into Shot Designer on my iPad. And then I would kind of, we just kind of sat down and we worked out the blocking of, you know, where the actors were going to go, where the camera would be. And, you know, there was like a certain sequence where, you know, I had to like back up around the corner into the corner as Dexter would walk by, and then step back out behind him. So like all of this kind of intricate blocking was worked out ahead of time, so that we didn't have to be like messing around on the boat in the water at night trying to figure out what worked.
Dexter, you're a sculptor, right?
Yeah.
Like you can draw and sculpt.
Yeah. I think in your intro question, you said, what am I working on now? I've been going to life drawing classes a couple times a week to just get my figure drawing skills back.
I bet you everybody saw that drawing of the boat and was like, whoa, what? Yeah, what is this? What is this? Like, what is this?
I know exactly what boat I'm looking for.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a friend that's a sculptor, and he told me this really interesting thing about sculpting that I love and I hang on to, which is that he said sculpting and sculpture is the only art where you take things away instead of add. And I've always loved that. Now, I don't think it's 100% true. I think like in filmmaking, for example, there's a lot of, you basically, you get all your coverage and then you take things away and you sculpt it into a story. So, but I think he just meant like painting versus sculpture.
And
versus
I think what he
meant
was, it is unique in that it's the only art where that is literally the only way to create. Now you can take a piece.
You start
and add,
with something really abstract, right?
There you go. That's the idea, and it is amazing because But I say my art right there on the wall is all adding. And we always have to tell folks, those are Legos on the wall.
Those are Legos,
right?
Behind it,
Oh, wow.
So those are just adding individual Legos to the plate as opposed to. I should try that one time though. Like fill the whole thing with Legos, and then start taking pieces off to create something. Oh,
create
5 by 5 block of Legos.
Yeah, a Lego sculpture. So
kill me, bro.
Before we get to things we should know, I do want to talk about the film school that you guys are going to start. Well, Dexter and Kevin in particular are going to start. I think you mentioned it's called Motion Picture Tech. What's that about? What's the vision behind that? And by the way, I think for whatever reason I said below the line earlier. I meant above the line. But go ahead.
This is where we miss Mr. Lopez himself. But he and I we taught together in the past, and I've been only as a friend in a sort of an advisory role as he goes through this enormous Herculean process of being appointed as a principal and project manager for a new high school, New York City Board of Education high school, focused on training kids from all 5 boroughs in below the line skills. It's a career technical education model, CTE model, and it's also based on a model from Los Angeles, a foundation of filmmakers, started by filmmakers George Clooney and others. And I can't recall the name right now, but they've put a bunch of money into creating a high school in the Los Angeles area that has focused on training this below the line talent, and that model is being imported by the New York City Department of Education, and of course modified to suit the local conditions. And our producer Kevin Lopez is at the helm of that project, and he's doing amazing work.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what comes of that. So is this completely sponsorship and grant based funding, or is the state of New York chipping in? Or are there grants from the state of New York? Is it Arts Council? How does it get funded or get built?
I do know for sure that it's New York City Board of Ed. So the funding is coming from this, the city, and I also am pretty confident in saying that there are a lot of really strong public-private partnerships involved. I'd be a little hesitant to name exactly who's doing it and who's putting it up, but I do know that there's a lot of industry interest and industry support, because the obviously the size of the industry here in New York City is significant, and the number of opportunities for skilled people is great.
I think that what you just said would surprise most people, but it is really hard to go into a location and crew up with competent below the line folks. Like there are places that they might have a great incentive, and it's like, well, let's shoot here. It just makes financial sense. And then you have to crew up with their people to get the money, but their people aren't ready. Right. Like there is a little bit of sort of, you need to have people you can count on. I like to play long-term games with long-term players. Yeah. And this is the reason you do it. You get a team that the outcome is going to be great, and exactly what to expect. But when you do that, you intentionally or unintentionally sort of box out others. that would come into the industry. And so it's a tricky thing because there's so much money on the line and the film costs so much to make, even if it's a short film. You can't risk the outcome of the film on a crew that isn't proven or tested or ready. And so I think the school is going to do great because there actually isn't near enough skilled crew, below the line crew to crew up a film set, even if it's a commercial, even if it's an some industrial or something. Like you still need like competent people to hop in and do it and be ready to go. And the fact is, in film, there's a lot of people in it, but everybody wants to do the intellectual stuff. Like there's a lot of those folks that are like, I'm an aspiring writer, I'm an aspiring director, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's that leaves a void in these other spaces. So kudos to you and Kevin. I think that's going to be.
Do you know how many students that you're expecting when the
I was going to
school
ask
is
that.
up and running?
Great question.
Yeah, they've I think they've offered seats to 175. They're starting next year for incoming freshmen.
Okay. Awesome.
They're about to, so they're going to build it up year on year. So it'll take them 4 years to get to their full complement.
Okay.
They're in temporary quarters, I think. All this stuff is very fluid. Kevin, obviously have up-to-date details. And that will build out to a permanent facility at some point. I'm quite sure. But it's also part of a resurgence of understanding that, career training and technical training is really poorly realized in the system. Like it's just a big opportunity for the population here to get really valuable skills that it's
perfect.
As you say, it's really hard to get on set. How do you even get the invitation to be on set if you've never held a C-stand or whatever? And I've been doing a lot of auditioning myself over the years and as an actor, and it's the same thing coming at this career choice kind of later, and pursuing that dream. When casting directors are putting together teams for these projects, the margins are so fine that it's very difficult for them. And I understand it. It's very difficult for them to take risks on actors they don't know.
That's right.
They got to come up and they got to show up on set, and we got to knock this scene out because we're moving on to the next one.
A really cool connection too between, like you said, like how you guys are both working in the industry and teaching, is that I think there's a level of disconnect between certain like film students trying to get into the industry and understanding how the industry works currently.
Yeah.
So being able to bridge that gap for the students and accurately guide them is going to be a really valuable thing.
We just had, our editor was a former student of Kevin's, and he was also our AD. We just had a lot of young and eager talent. Our sound designer was also, the son of somebody that Kevin works with in the education space. So we bring along, we bring this team, the sort of team we're building, the teams you were talking about, Chris, are teams that we're building out of a whole different sort of system of resources, I guess you could say. They're great.
Yeah, but Derek said a word that is very important in this conversation, and he said currently. Right. And I think that's something that Chris had mentioned earlier about, blaming film school for certain behaviors, is that institutions tend to get stuck in their ways in a certain way. Mm-hmm. So they teach the same thing over again. Like we were talking about the scouting, right? Maybe the institution tells you, well, you're supposed to take pictures. That seems like it makes sense. So they teach that. They teach that. They teach that. Not realizing, or not at least giving credit to the fact that there's new technology out that enables you to take 360 video and share that, right? And you can actually now use your digital tape measure to do things, right? And the institutions don't maintain their currency And I think that was the key word, is that if you can keep the knowledge flowing about how the industry currently works and what are the tools that people currently use, then I think you become of much greater value than, again, like Chris mentioned, some of the institutions that can't get out of their own way. So they then hinder the students that are coming through.
And
Exactly.
Nick, you're very kind, Nick, because I'll just call a spade a spade. There are a lot of universities, based on the way that universities get funded and can get funding, that know that there's this cadre of would-be creatives every single year, and they basically house them. And there's no real intention of building them as artists or professionals in a way that's um, that goes deep, that goes deeper than the surface of what it takes for them to graduate. And it's more about the business of the college, of the film school, the standalone film school, than it is about those students being set ready or having a POV. How many people do you come across that are good at a thing but don't have anything to say? You also have to have a point of view. You also have to have something you want to talk about that's relatable or that means something to anybody or brings some new idea to the table. I mean, say what you will about Poor Things, but Poor Things talked about an issue we've all talked about, but in a very, very, very new way that we hadn't seen before. Where are those students coming from? That wasn't an overnight success. That guy's been working like for 2-3 decades. I'm forgetting his name right now. Forgive me, but that was a great movie, and the attention to detail in that movie was insane. And so everything that the whole team gets is well deserved, but it's so far few in between. It's like,
and that's why we do this.
It's hard to it's hard to get that to come out, and there just is a little. I'm just saying, the film schools that come out of 4-year schools, they can keep up with the pace. They can stay current. I think that's why locally we saw Belmont buy Watkins Film School, but or the USC's program is great, and there's these in Yale's program. The new school, we've interviewed or not the new school, but the forget the name of their, but NYU's the new school, and NYU's film program and Yale's program. We've interviewed a lot of people that are from those universities. They can keep up, but the standalone film places, they may not even be interested in it. I'm just being honest. Like if someone wants to come on and say that's not the case, then that's great.
No, man. Why do you think Dexter and Kevin are making a film school, right? Like, they understand they need to be better than, they need to be greater than, and they also need to give opportunities. So that totally makes sense.
Yeah, it's true.
All right, let's ready, Chris, for some Papa Bear?
I'm ready. We got to bring in Papa Bear. It's time to eat our humble pie.
Yeah.
Producer Papa Bear.
Hey.
Why don't you give us?
Doing?
We're doing great. You look fantastic. Yep. Your spectacles are sexy and intellectual, and I just want you to know. Important. Yeah, I just want you to know that you're doing well, my friend. You're doing well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, of course. And welcome to the cast. I understand that you have a themed to our guests, things we should know that gives them a slight edge over me and Nick in this competition. So why don't you drop it on us? Things we should know with producer Papa Bear.
Okay. Well, I think this thing dovetails right into your conversation you just had. So here he goes. What is the first ever student-made film to be widely distributed on a major streaming service?
Oh, God bless America.
Blair Witch?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Blair Witch.
Is that it?
No.
Yeah. Literally, that was the first one I thought of, too. I was like, Blair Witch, dude. And that came out of Maryland. I should have said it first. That would have saved us both, right?
Okay, go on. Say the question again, Papa Bear.
Okay. What is the first ever student-made film to be widely distributed on a major streaming service?
It was shot on
a major streaming service. Blair Witch did Blair Witch go to the theaters, Derek?
Yeah,
but what I'm saying is that if it was one of the first to make it to the streaming as well, right? It was definitely in theaters, wasn't streaming, but like I would have said it.
Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
No. Don't go there. Don't go there.
The question is, to make it to a streaming service.
But
I'm just adding in that it's a major streaming service. It's not
Okay.
just anybody.
Is it Disney Plus? I want a clue.
Oh, you want
a clue?
what the streaming service is? Okay,
Yeah.
what's the streaming?
No.
What's the streaming service?
Are you gonna? Does that give it away if you tell us?
It won't give it away, man.
Not necessarily. Amazon Prime.
Okay, Amazon Prime is a tough one because indie films can just get put up there in the services deal. That can be shotgunned out like the way that Tubi takes films. Okay,
they take everything.
Let's see here. But it was Amazon invested in the movie, PB. Like it wasn't. It was like they promoted it. They advertised it.
It was
the students made it. Then they pitched it to Amazon. Actually, the director writer did, and Amazon took it.
Come on, Dexter.
But they didn't promote it.
One of your students.
Is Dexter looking it up?
He was one of Dexter's students.
Is Dexter googling?
He's phoning a friend. He's
totally
texting Kevin right now.
He's Where's Regis Philbin when you need him?
Right.
Show your hands.
Right.
Get down to your hands.
Yeah. He's
I don't know.
He doesn't need hands.
Okay, what year, Papa Bear?
Yeah, let's see. Amazon
Prime
has only been
what
around
decade?
for 6 years, right? Amazon Prime, so it's not that old.
Only 6 years?
Okay, I'll give you another hint. 2019 is when it's, documented for. It was made in 2017.
Is it a documentary? Is it a documentary?
Was it a documentary? We're kind of getting there, man. No, there was a film that Amazon Prime did where they were trying to beat out another film based off of the age of the filmmaker. So it's like Amazon Prime released a film that was made by a 16-year-old producer, and they were like, it's the youngest film ever produced, the youngest producer ever to make a feature film. I think it went to like, it wasn't South by. I think they bought it from there. I think they bought it from a festival.
Is that true?
Does it say?
Did they
Wait. Does it? Wait. No. Did it say that it won any festivals?
Let's see.
Because the guy. It's killing me. It wasn't South by Southwest. It wasn't Cannes.
It's a tough one.
It was the youngest. It was like 16 years old. He was like the youngest to win.
Student made
at one of these festivals, and then Amazon Prime bought the movie.
No festival tied to this.
No festival. Dang.
They missed it.
Oh, short film or feature film, Papa Bear?
It's a feature film.
So students made a feature.
Yeah,
that's also very unusual.
This guy, the director and writer, he started with a short in high school. It was 35 minutes.
That's not a short film.
And then when he got to college, he and students turned it into a feature film.
Okay. That's one of those things where you shoot a 35-minute short because some of the 35 minutes is going to show up in your feature. Yeah. So you shoot the feature while you have the resources to shoot it, and you make it a short. Okay.
He started with a short, and he expanded it
into a feature.
All right, he's going to have to give it to us, man. We're not going to get this. All right,
I'm all tapped out. I have no idea.
Yeah,
this is a mystery. Derek has something. Like, Derek, you got it?
I just like the movie Chronicle came to mind, but I think it was before 2019.
Oh, Chronicle.
No.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, what is it? What is it?
All right. The name of the film is Wrapped, with a W, like a chicken wrap. Wrapped.
What a random reference. PB, why are you thinking about chicken wrap?
He's hungry,
right
bro.
now?
We've been on this call for a while. You know what I'm saying? We've been talking. We've been doing our thing. He's hungry.
Like a chicken wrap.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
Here's
wrapped.
the director's name.
Mm-hmm.
Director and writer. Kalen Coates had the idea in mind for his film Wrapped during his senior year of high school, after filming his 35-minute long high school thesis film for $3,000. Once he came to study at Biola University's Snyder School of Cinema and Media Arts, the script and production grew from a 35-minute short film to a full feature-length film. After spending 2 weeks shooting it and a year and a half editing his film, Coates worked with Amazon to get his film on Amazon Prime.
So cool.
So he
awesome.
congratulations to him.
Yep.
What's in Kalen Coates?
Kalen Coates.
Is that with the K?
C-A-L-E-N. No.
Okay.
C-A-L-E-N.
Let's try to get Kalen.
Got to get Kalen on the podcast.
Let's try to get Kalen Coates on the podcast.
Yeah.
Figure out what he did, because what he did was he did not ignore the business side of show business. And kudos to him. It wasn't enough for him to make a short. It wasn't enough for him to make a feature. He then wanted, as we all as artists do, want our art to be seen by as many people as possible, because we have something to say. I'm going to look this up and see what the synopsis is, because I wonder, what that story was about and why it had so much urgency,
I think he ended up shooting it on a budget of $10,000.
So $13,000 all in to shoot a feature.
Yep.
Congratulations to him, man.
That's awesome.
Friends and family.
Yeah.
You know what that means, right? That means he had a ton of people who believed in him, that just worked for the love or worked for back end or both. He pulled a total Robert Rodriguez. The entire community probably pitched in.
Film student,
every
as well.
Coffee shop, every location probably gave it for free.
Yeah, the school, I'm sure, helped out.
And what is that? That's the ability to. It's the ability to communicate and sell your idea to other people. It's a call back to the beginning that Dexter talked about. Well, no, what I'm saying is, how do you get them? You get them by what Dexter said earlier. I want to be worthy of belief. I want to be worthy of funding. You have to be, special people are able to do this. Everybody's not really born able to speak to somebody in a way where they're inspired to do something for you.
Well, that's the key right there. We talk about all that all the time, right? Which is, were they investing in this film? Probably not. And when I say investing, I mean some of the money, right? Of course, but it's the time, it's the resources, it's the energy, whatever it was.
Yeah.
They were investing in that. They were investing in Kalen.
Yep.
Right. That's the key that you're talking about, Chris, right? That's what they wanted to
Kalen's like a little Sam Walton, right? Like, it's like, what did Sam say? He would go to his neighbor's door and say, I promise you, I am going to get this money back to you. He'd just look him dead in the eye and say, I promise you, I'm going to pay you back. Like, people are like, I plunk down the money right there. Like, man, cool, right. You sold me.
I'm in on you, bro. I'm in on you.
Yeah. Anyway,
all right, Chris, here's the storyline. Here's the storyline for you.
Yeah, give it to me.
It's a coming of age comedy about a girl searching for her stolen birthday present.
Holy moly. Have I seen this movie?
You have. It's called Pee-wee's Playhouse. Wasn't he looking for his bike?
I may have. No, I think I saw a movie that was like this. Now, so he's Mark Zuckerberg then. He's in love.
I don't know. I read some reviews, and like your story earlier, the awkward moment you had.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Most of the reviews said this was great. I liked it. It was fun. One review said that's the worst movie I've ever seen.
Troll.
Naturally.
I still want Kalen. Right. I still want Kalen on. I don't care that.
That's right.
Like, because I might not like the movie. But on the podcast I can be
But
authentic.
he got
I can
all
be
the
legit
nuts and
with them,
bolts right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
He turned it into a feature. He got it on Amazon Prime. Good.
Shout out.
Like
yeah. Shout out to what's his name? Kalen. What's the last name?
Coates.
Shout
out Coates.
All right. Shout out to Kalen Coates, man. Congratulations. And shout out to you, producer Papa Bear. This was an awesome things we should know. And that is a thing we all should know. All four of us should know what was the first indie student film to make it to world major distribution on a streamer. Kalen Coates.
And I have one more. And Papa Bear, you can stay on for this, but this is another things we should know.
Is this a culture check?
This is not a culture check yet, but this is a thing we should know. And it's really, I think I appreciated you, Papa Bear, for providing something about students and teaching. And that really is in the wheelhouse of Dexter, even though he didn't get the answer right. We won't hold that against him. But this is something that I think that both Derek and Chris should know.
Pressure's on Derek.
Okay.
Oh, bro, I got you. You ready for this? I'm just gonna say that I might give you a little hint, but I'm gonna start out with this. I'm gonna say, who said, I hope he makes the biggest mistake, the unforgivable that makes your heart break. I hope you tell him sorry's just not enough, and that it goes from good to bad.
Joe.
So I can have you back.
Joe.
That sounds like a lyric from 90. Is that 98? 1998? Right there.
Yeah, it's from "So I Could Have You Back" from the song.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So it's from a song
Nice.
called "So I Can Have You Back" from the R&B artist Joe.
Joe's so underrated, Derek.
He's 100%
Yeah,
underrated.
that voice.
He's so underrated. Like people now forget about Joe, and they don't think, you know, he's not the first name that comes to mind. I just think every song he sang it beautifully, and they really hit.
Yeah. I've heard that song so many times.
So tell
that's a whole other podcast, right?
Wait, no. Tell the audience, Derek, why you've heard that song so many times.
So this was a song that I shot a music video for a couple years back for Joe, and that was directed by Gerald Isaac, his manager, who I've shot probably about at least 50 to 60 projects with now.
Holy crap!
So he's someone that I've really built up like a really good working relationship with. So we kind of talk a lot and have a lot of plans for the future.
Oh, shout out! Like you couldn't
awesome,
afford to get that question wrong.
Yeah, right. Yeah, for real.
Nick just tried to end your career.
Yeah.
No, I know he was gonna get it, bro. I know he was gonna get it.
And the reason I've heard it so many times is because I also edited that music video.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Okay,
which,
man.
Which I don't think everyone knows. But
right, well, it's embedded in his spirit, bro. Like,
the multi hyphenate.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. It's perfect.
Definitely.
Okay, that was good, Nick. Because when you started talking, the first thing I was gonna guess was the haters ball from Chappelle's show.
I hate you. I hate you. I don't even know you, and I hate your guts. I hope all the bad things in life happen to you and nobody else but you.
Right now,
like I just thought right away. I hate you. I want all the worst things in life for you and only you.
Really, right.
Is that what Chappelle said? The haters ball. Anyway,
cool.
Kate needs to cut into this right here and put the scene from the haters ball, and cut in and put Joe's video,
put some Joe,
masterfully edited by Derek Mendler right here on the podcast. So hopefully we'll get that cut in.
It's pretty funny too if you read some of the comments on that, because they start getting into the psychology of the lyrics there and then the YouTube comments under that music video.
How many of us watch videos just for the comments though?
Oh,
well, that's
certain videos definitely.
Yeah. The comment section's on fire if it's the right video.
Like, you're just halfway in, you're like, comment's gonna be good on this one.
Yeah,
I discovered the YouTube channel this week thanks to producer Papa Bear. He'll find gems on the internet and send it to me. And there's this YouTube channel, guys, where they've taken old episodes of Sanford and Son with Red Fox, and they've like replaced Sanford's head with Donald Trump's head, but kept all the audio. And then all of his political enemies and friends and his sons are heads of other characters. And let me just tell you, it's hilarious.
Well, remember, but if it's hilarious, it's because it's genius, right? That's when you really start like how did you even come
editing
up with
on
this idea? Right.
We can put the link in the show notes to that. Everybody should go subscribe to the channel, because what he did was he made a new TV series out of it. Basically, he took old episodes, put Trumpy on there, and Hillary and Bill and everybody else, and then he makes a series out of it like it's a real TV show.
That's
so
awesome.
You're like re-following and rewatching Sanford and Son again.
In the Sanford and Son voices.
In the same voices. Yeah, the same voices as Red Fox and then the whole team that was on that. But you're watching these sort of edited over faces do it, and it's just the most 2024 thing, and it's perfect. And we'll put the link up.
Derek might be too young for Sanford and Son.
He can look it up. He can look up Red Fox. Red Fox is a comedic OG, just like Dick Gregory.
That's right.
So 100%. If he's down with Dick Gregory, he'll be down with Red Fox. It's simple as that.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, for sure.
Check it out.
Thank you, producer Papa Bear. Awesome job.
Thank you,
Nick, why don't you give us your culture check this week? I'm waiting. I've been waiting for this with bated breath.
Yeah, well, I gotta knock out that culture check. See, they weren't ready for that. Derek was like, "Whoa, we gonna step back."
I've got to.
He's like, "Y'all up in my face, bro."
I've got to cut that into a media.
Yes.
Thing.
All right.
Just press a button and hear it over and over again.
You guys know Film Riot by chance?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, like the turbulentest place.
Yep.
We got to go that.
Yes, right. Exactly. Yeah, we should have our editor put like
it's got a shake and everything, right?
Yeah. Video.
Yeah.
Culture check.
Yeah,
just have Lego blocks crumble down.
Yeah, something like lungs are not mine, bro. No, lungs are not mine.
Yeah.
All right. So here's the deal. All right. So we talk about make it and what it means. You guys gave some great answers, and previous guests give great answers. But I think there's still this thing in our culture when you have, let's call them independent films that I don't know. Some people could say they're substandard, right? They're not great, but they make a bunch of money. And it begs the question, which route should you go? Right? Should you stay authentic? Should you stay true to your art and your unique voice when to the left of you is a $5,000, let's say a $50,000 film that made $5.2 million, but everybody said the movie sucked. Okay. So in the news as of late, there is a series that is they're feature films. Okay. And I just found out that the third part of this series has recently been announced. As it's going to happen, I think, in 2025. And Chris alluded to he mentioned this earlier, this film, without even realizing that this is going to be part of the culture check.
Oh.
Okay. Are you ready for this, guys? The third installment of Winnie the Flippin' Pooh, right? Which is this sad with blood and honey. Everybody says it's terrible.
23?
There's going to be a Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey 3. I think people can't even believe there's a 2.
Yeah.
But I need you to understand that it was made for $50,000 and made $5.2 million in the box office. Number 2 was made for, I think what they're saying is $500,000 and has significantly improved upon the first one. But people are still saying it's not good. Yep. Right. It's going to be better, but still not good. And it might make, let's say it makes twice as much. Right. But it's still, you're going to be making tens of thousands, hundreds. Like it's crazy. Okay, so now you're making $5.2 million off of a $50,000 movie when other filmmakers are trying to be true to their art and true to their voices and aren't making near this, nor are they getting greenlit for multiple films. And you're talking about 2 just came out and 3 has already been approved. Wait a second. What do they say in the commercials? But wait, there's more. Mm-hmm. I also read that there are some people making, and I don't even want to say the word because I'm never going to not say this word again. I'm going to say it every time I get a chance. There's a movie that's going to be a spoof of Avengers, and what they call it, it's Avengers Assemble, right? Mm-hmm. They're making a movie called, are you ready? It's called The Poohniverse Monsters Assemble. As in Winnie the Pooh. And it's going to be featuring Bambi and Tinkerbell and Pinocchio and Peter Pan. It's all of these now available characters, right, that are in the public domain that they're now turning into these monsters, kind of spoofing the characters of their childhood. So the Poohniverse is upon us, gentlemen.
I'm going to write down.
Right. And we are over here making cerebral... We're making cerebral movies. We're making impactful things. And yet they're making millions of dollars off of Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. So that's the culture check here. Like, how do we battle this as filmmakers in our minds about when you're watching this kind of money flow in on this, when you're trying to be an artist, you're trying to be an auteur, you're trying to speak your voice or speak the voice of a community. This is what's making money.
I have a ton of opinions, but I want to hear what Dexter has to say first.
I had a lot of thoughts as you were describing this. It's an attention-seeking culture, and God bless them for coming up with that. The last thought I had was, would you be wanting to stand at next to that crowd of people at like the rap party? Would you have any, would you have anything to say? No.
Right. No.
So, I'm glad. I guess I'm just glad I don't have to go to the rap party for that.
Yeah. Well, maybe the rap party is them dancing in money, right? Like that's the difference. It's like, and that's what I'm saying. It's not a matter of quality potentially. Again, you don't want to crap on somebody's film. They made a film, right? They're proud of it. It's making money, right? Who are we to say good or bad or otherwise? But go ahead, Dexter.
The first thought I had was, that Winnie the Pooh one was probably like a whole lot of fun and made out of like a pretty honest place, I would imagine, even though it may have really sucked. And now, now that there's just the money train kicked in behind them. So, God bless them. I don't know that. I mean, I'm making slasher Pooniverse films anytime.
See, you can't not say it now. Now that the word is out.
It's the sequel to South Shore, no? We're gonna take it down a different path there.
It's gonna involve sharks and pirates and
That's right.
Sharknado
actually is a really good Sharknado universe.
A really good example. Shout out to Thunder Levin, creator of Sharknado, who basically made this thing for fun, and then he got caught up in what Dexter exactly said, which is like, somehow it made money. Somehow people. What happened? I remember it was on Twitter back when it was called Twitter. People were watching it to watch Ian Ziering, who was famous for being on Beverly Hills 90210, and I don't think he was super well liked. They were tuning in to watch him get eaten digitally by a shark, and that got so much attention. Yeah, that got so much attention that it allowed Sharknado 2 to happen. But when your moment's over, it is just over, and you're left with Sharknado, and you're not left with that sense of having said something you wanted to say. Derek, what are your thoughts on this culture check here?
I think just like the way of kind of you need to look at it as an artist to make sense of it all is starting with a little introspection. You kind of have to understand what you want, like what you value yourself, in terms of like, are you in this for the money? Are you in this for stability? Are you in this to tell your story? Or to tell things that you feel need to be told. And, then that can help you make sense of like, like it's choice overload, really. Like, what do I make? Do I make this thing? Do I make this? Do I make this? And if you understand what you're in it for and what's meaningful to you in this industry, then it can help you block out some noise like that and maybe not be jealous of people over there having fun and making some money when, if it's really valuable to you that you need to be in here making your art and telling your story. And if you understand that that's what you need as an artist, then it helps let some of the other feelings go about projects like that.
It's a great point because it's what your mom always told you. Don't count somebody else's money. Right. You gotta be working on what you're supposed to work on. I mean, in my view, I look at it as sort of this interesting market play, right? Like first to market usually wins. And there is, and this might just be the fact that I'm reading this incredible book called The First Tycoon about Cornelius Vanderbilt right now. It's a great book. I recommend it to anybody. But it's he was a guy who was kind of like a rough character to be around, and he was going to force his way to be first on stuff. And I think when people are first, I mean, these guys had this movie, the first movie made so fast after Winnie the Pooh went into public domain, it'll make your head spin. But they knew that to capitalize on it, they had to be first with it. And the genius part of it, to me, if we say there's any part that's genius, is that the branding is done for you already. How many films can say that? You normally have to create a brand around your protagonist. These guys, who's not going to go watch a movie that has Bambi in it? Who's not going to go watch a movie that has Winnie the Pooh in it or some of these other public domain characters that exist? You've already got the branding engine locked in. So you don't even have to have P&A at the level that you should have it, which is usually 60% of the total budget. So 50 or 60% at this point. So that's the genius part. Another thing is too, I'm just in a place too. Now I'm in my 40s. It's like, there are some things I have to accept. I just don't get it. I just don't get it. My youngest daughter showed me a TikTok trend. And basically what happens is the kids like flick their pants and then do a spin and then do like this. And then it ends. And she goes, isn't that cool? I said, I don't get it. I don't get it. It's not cool. There's no talent there. There was nothing interesting there whatsoever. I don't know why they're flicking their pants. She goes, it's a fit check. It's a fit check. Like, who cares? Who cares? And now I'm over here. I sound like Larry David to her. And it's just like, I'm okay with sound. I've accepted it. Like, things just aren't for me. And I think Winnie the Pooh, kudos to those guys. Blood and Honey is like just something that's not for me. Like, right. Like, so I don't really.
Let me give you an example. So here's the other thing. So we get those pieces, right? You have the IP that's there. It's a horror movie, right? It's easier to make more money on a horror movie. I think all the movies that have made, 100 times their budget have been horror movies, right?
Oh, yeah,
so you get all that. Right. But I will tell you this, there's someone else who did this. So there's another movie that did this that was higher profile, at least in my opinion. And that was Deadpool.
Yeah.
So I did not watch the Deadpool movies for the longest time because I wasn't interested in the Deadpool movies. But my son wants to watch like the third one that came out, right? So I got to watch these movies because he's 12. I'm like, I got to watch these movies before you watch them to see if I'm going to let you watch this stuff. So reluctantly, I watched Deadpool. And I watched the first one and I was like, no, my son can't watch it. But the second thing I realized was it is a spoof of superhero movies.
Yep.
It is what you did as a kid when they said, hey, if you could have one superpower, what would it be? Everybody said the same thing. I want to be invincible. Right? I don't want to die. Like, that's what everybody says. No one wants to be super fast. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody wants to be invincible.
I did love The Flash.
Everybody loves The Flash. And you think about Superman, you're like, I want to have Superman's powers, but like, he has every power. You can't say that, right? So it's like, I want to be invincible. That's what he did. He said, okay, and I'm going to be invincible. And everything they do in superhero movies, I'm going to spoof the way that they did it. I'm going to spoof the way that they talk, the way that they act. Superheroes aren't supposed to hurt people. Right. So he hurts people, right? You do all the things that are contrary to what you grew up with. So if anybody had the idea, it was actually the makers behind Deadpool. And then I think
Ryan Reynolds is a one-man train wreck. I mean, he destroys on camera. I've never seen a guy that can carry a movie like him.
Right, but that's the thing is that he, of course, is Ryan Reynolds, and he's
one-man wrecking crew. I should say
wrecking crew.
Yeah,
right. But he's at the top of the game.
Yeah.
So what you're seeing is someone basically taking that example, and they're doing it from an indie perspective. Because if you watch any of those Deadpool films, that's literally what he's doing. He's spoofing his childhood in every aspect of it. When did you have sex scenes in superhero movies? You didn't get that. Right? You didn't have sex jokes. Like, none of the stuff that he was doing in Deadpool did you see as a child. They are just doing it in the horror genre.
Well, there's that, but I'll also piggyback on what Dexter said earlier, which is culture. The thing about a zeitgeist is you sometimes don't know when you're in it. And then that's how culture and society can surprise you. Right? I don't think that the first John Wick, I don't think those producers were sure that was going to be what it turned out to be. Like, here's a movie about a guy who wants revenge for his dog being killed. And on the surface, they're like, fingers crossed, I hope this works.
And it sounds like a Clint Eastwood movie.
And it worked. It worked so much more than they expected it to work. I'm just saying. And I think that we don't know what society will like until we find out, oh, society likes this. And then if you're trying to cash their lottery ticket, you'll fail because they already cashed their lottery ticket. They were first to market. So to Derek's point, it's like, okay, they made the movie. They were probably just having fun on set. They're like, we're going to make the first freaking Winnie. No, Deadpool is big freaking huge budget, $100 million.
But is Ryan Reynolds having fun because he's got access to that kind of money? Trust me, bro. If you and I were Ryan Reynolds,
I'm not saying they weren't having fun on the set of. I'm not saying they weren't having fun on Deadpool set. I'm saying there were some big decision makers there. There was some big.
100%. But
that was.
If you watch,
this wasn't some kids doing Blair Witch.
If you watch the movie, you're gonna see that it's like them. It's just. Dude jokes.
I've seen
the whole thing.
Deadpool's incredibly popular, bro. Most people have seen that movie and they love it. And I think it's mostly just Ryan Reynolds because that's what he does. But with this,
it's college.
When Derek said what he said about them having fun on set, I can almost close my eyes and see the set.
Yes,
like I can see a white full table as they're crafty. Like I can see their crafty table right now, and they were just winging it. They were like, "We're gonna be the first ones to have the Winnie the Pooh movie, doing crazy evil stuff." And then to Dexter's point, it made some money, and now they're in the whirlwind. Now they have to make a movie that's ridiculous on its face, but now they have to make money. But now they have to make the money,
and there's
that might have been the
pressure.
Exactly. And that might have been how they got the money as well, or there's all these things like we'll take it to market. If it does well, we're going to need the sequel, right? We're going to Sharknado this thing. Who knows? That could be part of the deal. Like they might be contracted to do 6 of these joints, just like Sharknado did.
Kudos to the makers of Winnie the Pooh, Blooded Honey, and the Pooniverse, guys. Best of luck to you. We're going to continue making what we're supposed to make, and I don't have to get it to appreciate what you guys are doing. So congratulations on your newfound wealth and paper and fame and whatever comes with it. Hey, it is what it is. Before we wrap, though, Nick, thank you for that culture check, huge one, and it's a good conversation. We got to keep having it. Before we wrap, I just want to know from you guys what's next for South Shore. What's next for the short and for the feature? What you expect to happen, and Derek, I want to hear from you before we get off with you. What it was like to work with Andre Gaines. So I'll start with South Shore, and then we'll move to Andre Gaines.
Sure, thanks,
we'll wrap
Chris.
This thing up.
South Shore was selected at the Coney Island Film Festival for first week of May. It's going to screen there. We're going to screen it again for some of the funders out in Huntington, Long Island. They're featuring us at their big annual gala as one of the projects that they funded last year. The feature script is pretty much ready to go. It's budgeted. It's so we're hoping that the proof of concept.
Do you mind if I ask what the budget is on the feature?
We tried to keep it at $1 million. It might have gone to $1.1 million, $1.2 million, but it's. I would push it to $1.3 million, maybe between 3 and 6, just so that you don't hit the SAG sort of boundaries. Yeah,
right? and have your casting constricted, and your inability to sell to a certain marketplace. Like you have to have a budget threshold to even pitch to certain large markets.
Yeah, well, I'll talk to you more about that.
Absolutely.
That avenue for sure. But we're excited to see where it goes in the festival world this year. And where the feature goes from there.
I'm pumped about it too, man. Yep. Congratulations on all the success, and we'll look out for it on the festival trail, and the feature I know will come, right behind it. You guys have been pros and been doing this for so long in almost every single aspect of filmmaking, whether it be acting, directing, or writing, producing. So,
and teaching.
So I know you guys are going to get there. Derek, tell us about Andre Gaines. If you had 3 things about Andre that we might not know,
if you had the time, right? If you had that kind of engagement, we don't know what it was like on
No, Andre is great. He's so great. I initially met him in Washington D.C. at Dick Gregory's funeral. I was brought on to the project basically over the phone, and at the time. This was years back, And I was sent some resumes of, you know, gaffers and stuff to look over, and like camera operator, gaffer, and I'm looking at them, and like some of these guys are like guys who like worked on Captain America Civil War and stuff, and I'm like, are you sure like you want like this I'm approving these people?
Right.
But no, everyone was fantastic. We had the sound mixer, I believe, who was from House of Cards, like the Emmy Award mixing sound mixer from there. And yeah, everyone was great. We shot like a whole lot of interviews. And then we just kind of shot like piecemeal over the next like 2 years or so. Traveled around a bit, up to Massachusetts with Andre and the team, to go out to the farm and everything and shoot with Lily and Gregory.
Oh wow!
And it was a really neat experience to see that history. And we were looking at some old photographs and like finding the same angles and getting them from the current day. So we spent some time doing that, and it was just like a really good creative experience collaborating with Andre. And he's someone who comes and he brings a lot of experience. He's from the financing side of things. Mm-hmm. So he just got like a wealth of knowledge and experience on the industry. So you know, he was always great to talk to about kind of things of that nature. And then yeah, the film, it was kind of hard at first. Like I didn't have a fully conceptualized vision of where it would end up.
Yeah.
So to be like at the Tribeca premiere of the film with everyone and see it on like this massive screen outside was super cool.
Yeah.
And yes, so we've worked together a bunch of times since. Just wrapped a documentary with Andre called Triumph, Jesse Owens and the Berlin Olympics, which is a History Channel documentary on Jesse Owens.
That's huge.
It's so cool, man.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I can't wait to see that. I've seen some clips of Hitler at those games, and he's shaking and moving a lot. You kind of find out that guy was on all kinds of speedballs and on drugs the whole time. And the German military thought it was like a supplemental advantage their soldiers would have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's so crazy how strung out he ended up being on, you know, modern day speed and meth, basically. Like he would combine it. And it's insane. I can't wait to check that out, Derek. That's awesome. And shout out to Andre Gaines. If you ever want to come on the podcast, Andre, you know where to find us.
Yep, 100%. We had Christian on. I think and then we've got Derek. It's like
it's time to
have Andre. It's time.
It's time now. It's also time for you guys to tell us where we can find you on social media, on the internet, and see some of this wonderful work you guys have done. Dexter, where can we find you?
We're on Instagram at South Shore Movie, and my page, my acting and producing page is dexterstrong.com. Mm-hmm. I'm also on Instagram at Dexter K Strong. And don't forget at Kevin Lopez. He's also at South Shore Films. He's got so many handles, I lose track of them. Motion Picture Tech.
And Kevin's is Kevin Lopez Films on Instagram.
Okay. Thanks, Derek. Kevin Lopez Films. Motion Picture Tech is the handle for the high school that he's starting.
Okay.
Cool.
All right.
Got it.
Derek, where can we find you?
Mostly Instagram. I'm on there at Derek Mindler Cine, CINE.
CINE.
Yeah. And then my website is derekmindler.com. And yeah, that's basically where you'll find me.
I enjoyed your website, by the way. So good job on that. And kudos to you guys. We appreciate you very much. You guys heard it or saw it firsthand here. Make sure you go support these guys. These are true independent filmmakers. You can find Derek at Derek Mendler Cine, CINE on Instagram, or derekmindler.com. You can find Dexter at South Shore Movie or at Dexter K Strong on Instagram, or his collaborator Kevin Lopez Films on Instagram as well. You can reach out to either one of them if you have questions. Maybe you want to get involved in the funding of the film. Maybe you want to support it in a variety of ways that we can do today because we're all connected through social media, for example. And also the name of the film school is Motion Picture Tech. That's the handle at Motion Picture Tech on Instagram. So go check that out and support that as well. We're going to be tracking that ourselves because it's a huge endeavor to build a school and to do it with such a philanthropic and great spirit and sort of a genuine spirit to have these folks come out and have careers in film. So looking forward to seeing what happens with that. As far as we are concerned, anywhere you go to listen to fine podcasts, you will find us at the Make It Podcast. You can go to our YouTube page. Thanks for everyone subscribing and supporting. We love you for that. It means the world to us. You can just search for the Make It Podcast and we'll show right up on that site as well. If you want to reach out to Nick directly, there's two ways. You can email him at nick@bonsai.film. That's BONSAI.FILM. Or you can find him on Reddit at Nicholas Bugs. Send questions to Nick. It can be anything. Well, not anything, but almost anything. And he'll bring it up on this podcast. Yes, he'll bring it up on this podcast. We will answer your Reddit questions. So bring us your Reddit questions and we will answer them on this pod, or we will answer them directly, or we'll do both. If you want to reach out to me, I am on X at Flame in Your Heart. Your is spelled UR, or you can just search for Chris Barkley and I will come right up. In terms of everything we're doing in the world of film, go to bonsai.film, BONSAI.FILM. Last but not least, we have a newsletter called Indie Insights. It comes out every 2 weeks. It's amazing. It's just a passion project for us and the whole team that puts it together every 2 weeks. We find things from all across the world of film that really are hard to find and not obvious. Tools, insider stuff, you name it. It's all in the newsletter, and the newsletter is free, folks. So this is our love letter to you as filmmakers and to all the people out there that are creating things every day and trying to make a living doing it. Indie Insights, you can subscribe at bonsai.film/subscribe. So that's www.bonsai.film/subscribe. It is free. And when you sign up, you'll get the next newsletter on Friday. So with that, Nick, can you leave us with the credo?
And he said Dick Gregory was the only one who could talk for 3 hours straight without breaking, right? So yeah, guys, we really appreciate you so much for doing this and being here with us. We'd love to continue to follow you and your careers as you grow and you go into doing all of these wonderful things that you're doing. So we never want to say that this is the last time we spoke, right? There's always an opportunity for a round two. There's opportunity for collaboration. There's opportunities for us to share what it is you're doing on our social, on our newsletter, wherever we can, to continue to bolster you guys and the rest of the filmmakers that we've had on here. We basically look at this as like, hey, now we got two new friends, right, in the filmmaking industry. So let's keep it going. So with that said, I say, as always, be better, be creative, and be engaged.
And thank you for listening. Talk soon, Nick.
Yes, sir. We'll do it again.
Dexter, Derek, can't thank you enough, man. Be cool. Peace.
Thank you, guys.
Nick. Thanks very much,
guys.
Chris.
Take it easy.
All right. Be good.